The human fleet struck like lightning from the gods themselves. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos led her fighter squadrons in a charge that defied all military logic. 200 small human fighters against thousands of alien vessels the size of destroyers. But Maria was not thinking about logic. She was thinking about protecting her friends. "All fighters, this is Wolf Leader," she called into her radio as her Raptor screamed through space at impossible speed. "Remember, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to cause chaos. Follow my lead and make these monsters angry." Her first target was a massive Vextol command ship, a biomechanical nightmare that looked like a giant squid made of metal and flesh. The alien vessel turned its weapons toward her squadron, but Maria was already moving. Her fighter twisted through space like a dancing bird, avoiding the green plasma bolts that could have vaporized her ship. "Fox 1! Fox 2! Maria shouted. As she fired her quantum torpedoes, the torpedoes were Dr. Walsh's first surprise. Unlike normal missiles that existed in only one dimension, these weapons traveled through multiple realities at the same time. The Vextol ship tried to shoot them down, but its weapons passed right through them. The torpedoes struck the alien hull and exploded with impossible force, tearing holes in reality itself. The Vextol command ship shuddered and screamed, a sound that came through space like the cry of a dying god. Green blood poured from the wounds in its hull, and its tentacles writhed in agony. Direct hit. Call Captain Jake Rodriguez, Maria's wingman. Whatever those torpedoes are made of, the aliens have never seen anything like them. All across the battlefield, human fighters were attacking with weapons that broke the laws of physics. Captain Tony Kim fired temporal missiles that made parts of enemy ships age 1,000 years in seconds. Lieutenant Sarah Mills used gravity bombs that created tiny black holes, sucking alien vessels into crushing singularities. But the real destruction was just beginning. Dr. Kate Walsh sat at her control, stationed aboard the Valkyrie, her hands dancing across controls that managed forces beyond normal understanding. The quantum disruptors were her masterpiece, weapons that existed in 7 dimensions at once. "Quantum disruptors locked on target," she announced, "firing in 3, 2, 1, mark." The weapons fired, but there was no flash of light, no explosion, no sound. Instead, the targeted Vextol ships simply began to come apart at the atomic level. Their hulls dissolved like sugar in water. Their weapons melted like ice in a furnace. Their biomechanical brains stopped thinking as the quantum fields that held matter together were torn apart. "My God," whispered Captain Carter, watching the destruction through the view screen. "They're not just dying. They're being unmade." Admiral Morrison stood calmly in the center of the bridge, watching the tactical display. "Time remaining?" 74 seconds, sir," reported Lieutenant Kelly. "Kate, deploy the temporal bombs." Dr. Walsh activated her second set of weapons. The temporal bombs were devices that could make time move differently in small areas of space. When they struck the Vextol fleet, some enemy ships began moving in slow motion, while others sped up until they tore themselves apart. Commander Alex Turner's heavy cruisers opened fire with humanity's most classified weapons. Gravity cannons that created miniature black holes. Reality bombs that changed the basic laws of physics in small areas. Consciousness disruptors that attacked the very idea of thought. All batteries, continuous fire. Turner shouted from his command ship, "Don't give them time to think. Don't give them time to adapt." The Harbinger, Turner's massive battleship, fired a gravity cannon that created a black hole the size of a basketball. The tiny singularity appeared in the middle of a group of Vextol ships and began pulling them in. The alien vessels stretched and twisted as they fell toward the impossible gravity, their screams echoing across space. The Devastator launched 1,000 missiles in 30 seconds, each one carrying a reality bomb. When the missiles exploded, the laws of physics changed. Gravity stopped working. Time moved backward. Light became solid. The Vextol ships caught in these areas simply stopped making sense and collapsed into nothing. Colonel, Danny Pierce's Marines were doing the impossible. They had been launched in assault pods directly at the largest Vextol command vessels. The alien ships tried to shoot down the pods, but human technology had given Pierce's soldiers something no one expected: neural interfaces that let them think faster than any living creature should be able to. Sergeant Mike Davis crashed his pod through the hull of a Vextol destroyer. The moment he stepped out of the wreckage, his neural interface kicked in. To everyone else, he moved like a blur. To him, the world slowed down. He could see the alien warriors coming to stop him, but they moved like they were swimming through thick mud. His plasma rifle fired once, twice, 3 times. Each shot was perfectly aimed, hitting weak points in alien armor that his enhanced brain could see in detail. The Vextol warriors fell before they could even understand what was happening. Boarding successful, Pierce reported over the radio. We're inside their command ship. These neural interfaces are incredible. We're moving and thinking faster than they can react. Lieutenant Amy Chun, one of Pierce's squad leaders, led her team deeper into the alien vessel. The inside of the ship was like a nightmare made real. The walls were made of biomechanical flesh that pulsed with alien blood. Tentacles hung from the ceiling like jungle vines. Strange lights blinked in patterns that hurt to look at. "Sir," Amy called to Pierce, "I'm seeing something weird. The alien crew is moving slower and slower. It's like their collective consciousness is getting confused." Dr. Walsh heard the report and smiled. Her neural cascade generators were working. These weapons attacked the Vextol collective consciousness directly, sending feedback loops through their shared mind. Every alien ship that was destroyed, every command center that was captured, sent waves of confusion through the entire enemy fleet. Captain Amy Robinson was still flying her stealth ship inside the enemy formation, but now she was not hiding. Her ship appeared throughout the Vextol fleet like a ghost, striking at critical command nodes and disappearing before the aliens could respond. "Admiral," she reported, "the enemy command structure is collapsing. They're not coordinating anymore. Individual ships are starting to act on their own, and they're making stupid mistakes." 53 seconds remaining, Lieutenant Kelly announced. The largest Vextol command ship, a massive biomechanical cathedral that was 3 miles long, began to emit a sound that made every human who heard it feel sick. It was the scream of a collective consciousness that was dying, the cry of thousands of alien minds that were losing their connection to each other. The ship tried to retreat, but Commander Turner's gravity cannons had trapped it in a cage of twisted space. The more it struggled, the more it was torn apart by forces that it could not understand. "Admiral," Dr. Walsh called out, "the neural cascade generators are overloading their collective consciousness. I'm reading massive feedback loops through their entire network. Their shared mind is having what can only be described as a complete nervous breakdown." All across the battlefield, Vextol ships were stopping in the middle of combat. Some began firing randomly at empty space. Others started attacking their own vessels. A few simply shut down completely, drifting through space like dead metal. 37 seconds remaining. Kelly reported. Maria Santos led her fighters against the last group of organized enemy resistance. The alien fighters that had seemed so dangerous at the start of the battle were now flying in confused circles, their pilots unable to think clearly as their collective consciousness fell apart. "This is too easy," Jake Rodriguez said over the radio. "It's like they've forgotten how to fight." "That's exactly what's happening," Maria replied. "Their shared mind is dying. Without it, they're just individual creatures who don't know what to do." The quantum disruptors continued to tear apart enemy ships at the atomic level. The temporal bombs kept creating areas where time moved wrong. The gravity cannons opened black holes that swallowed entire squadrons of alien vessels. But the most devastating weapon was the neural cascade generators. These devices were driving the Vextol collective consciousness insane. turning their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. 22 seconds remaining. Kelly announced. Admiral Morrison watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Of the 4,000 Vexto ships that had started the battle, less than 500 were still fighting. The rest had been destroyed, disabled, or were attacking their own forces in confusion. "Sir," Captain Carter said in amazement, "we're actually winning. We're destroying them faster than they can adapt." 15 seconds remaining, Kelly called out. The last Vexto command ship, the massive cathedral that had been the center of their collective consciousness, began to break apart. Its biomechanical hull cracked like an egg, spilling green blood and alien machinery into space. The screaming sound it made grew louder and more desperate. 10 seconds, Kelly announced. The human fleet continued firing every weapon they had. Reality bombs changed the laws of physics. Quantum disruptors unmade matter itself. Temporal weapons turned time into a weapon. And through it all, the human fleet moved through space like a pack of hunting wolves. 300 ships in perfect formation, their engines burning bright blue against the darkness. They had left the safety of the Kepler Nebula 30 minutes ago, and now they were racing toward the most dangerous enemy the galaxy had ever known. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Valkyrie, his hands clasped behind his back. Through the main view screen, he could see the first signs of the enemy. Tiny dots of green light in the distance, growing larger with each passing minute. The Vexto fleet was waiting for them in the Proxima Centauri system, spread out like a disease across space. "Long-range sensors are picking up movement," reported Lieutenant Sam Kelly. "Sir, they know we're coming." "Of course they do," Morrison replied calmly. "They've been watching us since we left the nebula. The question is, do they understand what we're planning?" Captain Lisa Carter studied her tactical display. The enemy fleet was massive beyond imagination. Thousands of biomechanical ships, each one bigger than anything humanity had ever built. They moved with an organic flow that was both beautiful and terrifying, like a school of giant mechanical fish swimming through the void. "Sir," she said quietly, "I'm counting at least 4,000 enemy vessels, maybe more. They're arranging themselves into attack formation." Chief Communications Officer Rachel Stone looked up from her console. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. "Admiral, we're receiving messages from the Galactic Council fleet. The Corvin ships are requesting that we retreat immediately. They're saying the enemy force is 5 times larger than expected." Morrison didn't move. "What about the other species?" "The Altarian Navy is pulling back to minimum safe distance. The Zalani Armada is doing the same. Sir, they're all retreating and leaving us to face this alone," Captain Carter muttered. "We expected that," Morrison said. "They've already been beaten by these things. They're afraid. Fear makes people do things that don't make sense." Through the view screen, the Vexto ships became more visible. Each vessel was a work of terrible art, combining mechanical precision with organic horror. Their hulls were dark gray with green veins that pulsed like a heartbeat. Long tentacles hung from their sides, twitching with alien intelligence. At the front of each ship was what looked like a massive mouth filled with metal teeth. Dr. Kate Walsh entered the bridge, carrying her experimental weapon controls. Her hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, but from excitement. She had spent 2 years building weapons that most scientists said were impossible, and now she was about to find out if they worked. "Admiral," she said, "all experimental systems are online. Quantum disruptors are charged and ready. Temporal bombs are synchronized with the fleet chronometers. Neural cascade generators are showing green across the board." "Any last-minute problems?" Morrison asked. "Just one. These weapons have never been tested in real combat. We know they work in laboratory conditions, but out here against real targets, anything could happen." Morrison nodded. "Kate, in about 15 minutes, we're going to find out just how impossible your weapons really are." On the other side of the fleet, Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos sat in the cockpit of a Raptor-class fighter. Around her, 200 other pilots were doing final checks on their ships. The fighter squadrons would be the first to engage the enemy, clearing a path for the main fleet. All pilots, this is Wolfleader, Maria said into her radio. Remember, you're training. We go in fast, we hit hard, and we don't give them time to think. Our job is to create chaos in their formation so the big ships can get close enough to use their special weapons. Her wingman, Captain Jake Rodriguez, flew beside her in his own fighter. Maria, I've been looking at the enemy formation. Those ships are huge. Our weapons might not even scratch them. Jake, we're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to distract them. Every second they spend shooting at us is a second they're not thinking about what the main fleet is planning. In the engineering section of the Valkyrie, Chief Engineer Ryan Brooks worked frantically to prepare the ship's systems. The experimental weapons drew enormous amounts of power, and he had to make sure the ship's reactors could handle the load. Chief, called out Petty Officer Lisa Wong, the quantum disruptor is drawing more power than expected. If we fire it at full strength, we might overload the main reactor. Then we'll fire it at full strength anyway, Ryan replied. If this plan doesn't work, it won't matter if our reactor explodes. Captain Amy Robinson was still flying her stealth ship deep inside the enemy formation. Her sensors were picking up massive amounts of activity as the Vextol ships prepared for battle. Their bioplasma weapons were charging, their boarding tentacles were extending, and their collective consciousness was buzzing with hostile thoughts. Admiral, she transmitted, I'm seeing something strange. The enemy ships are talking to each other more than usual. It's like they're discussing something important. Can you tell what they're saying? Morrison asked. Not exactly, but I think. They're confused. They've analyzed our fleet, and they can't figure out why we're attacking with so few ships. Their collective consciousness is trying to understand our strategy. Morrison smiled grimly. Good. Confusion is exactly what we want. The distance between the two fleets shrank rapidly. 5 light minutes. 4 light minutes. 3. The Vextol. Ships began to spread out, forming a wall of metal and flesh across space. Their weapons were glowing with deadly energy, ready to tear the human fleet apart. On the bridge of the Valkyrie, the tension was almost unbearable. Every officer knew that in a few minutes, they would either achieve the impossible or die trying. There was no middle ground, no retreat, no second chance. Sir, Lieutenant Kelly reported, enemy fleet is powering up weapons. We're detecting massive energy buildups across their entire formation. Time to engagement? Morrison asked. 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Morrison activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. We are about to enter combat with an enemy that has destroyed every fleet sent against them. But we are not every fleet. We are humans. And humans have a long history of doing impossible things. He paused, looking around the bridge at his crew. Each face showed determination mixed with fear. In 2 minutes, we're going to show the galaxy. What happens when you threaten the people we've sworn to protect? We're going to prove that evil doesn't always win. We're going to demonstrate that sometimes the small guy beats the giant. Commander Alex Turner's voice came through the speakers from his battleship. Admiral, the 7th Fleet is ready. All weapons armed and locked on target. Colonel Danny Pierce reported from the Marine assault ships. Sir, my people are suited. Up and ready to board enemy vessels. We're locked and loaded. Dr. Walsh checked her experimental systems one final time. Admiral, all special weapons are ready. We have 97 seconds of surprise. Let's make them count. The view screen now showed the enemy fleet in terrible detail. Thousands of biomechanical ships, each one pulsing with alien life. Their weapons were charging, their tentacles were reaching out like the arms of sea monsters, and their collective consciousness was focused on one thing, destroying the human fleet. 1 minute to engagement, Lieutenant Kelly announced. Morrison walked to the center of the bridge. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency, preparing for the battle of their lives. These men and women had trained for this moment, dreamed. Of it, feared it. Now it was here. Sir, Captain Carter said quietly, the enemy is launching fighters, thousands of them. Through the view screen, they could see small ships pouring out of the larger Vexto vessels, like angry insects. Each fighter was the size of a human destroyer, armed with bioplasma cannons and guided by the collective intelligence of the swarm. Maria, Morrison called to the fighter squadron leader, looks like you'll have company. Copy that, Admiral. Maria replied, we're ready for them. The space between the two fleets was now filled with energy and tension. Human ships on one side, their blue engines burning bright. Vexto vessels on the other side, their green weapons glowing with deadly purpose. In between, thousands of alien fighters swarmed like mechanical locusts. 30 seconds to engagement, Lieutenant Kelly announced. Morrison took a deep breath. 50 years of human space exploration had led to this moment. Everything they had learned, everything they had built, everything they believed in would be tested in the next 97 seconds. All ships, he said into the communication system. This is it. Operation Thunderstrike begins in 10 seconds. Remember, we fight not just for humanity, but for every species that calls this galaxy home. The countdown began. 10, 9. For our neighbors, Morrison whispered. 7, 6, 5. For our children, 4, 3, 2. For everyone who believes that good can triumph over evil, 1. Fire! The human armada assembled at the edge of the Kepler Nebula, a massive cloud of gas and dust that would hide their ships from enemy sensors until the last moment. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Valkyrie, watching as 300 human ships formed into attack formations. Each ship was different, built for a specific purpose, but together they moved like parts of a single machine. The alien observers could not believe what they were seeing. Ambassador Zefkar stood on his command ship, watching the human fleet. Through his telescopes, his crystal body flickered with confusion and worry. Only 300 ships, he whispered to his aide. The Altarian Navy had 2,000 vessels when they were destroyed. The Corvan Defense Force had 1,500. How do these humans expect to succeed where we failed? On the bridge of the Valkyrie, Captain Lisa Carter studied the tactical displays. The enemy fleet was spread across the Proxima Centauri system like a dark plague. Long-range sensors showed over 4,000 Vexto ships, each one massive and terrible. Their biomechanical hulls pulsed with green light, and their weapon ports were already charging with deadly energy. Sir, Lisa said quietly, I've been looking at the battle reports from the other fleets. Every single one of them tried to match the Vexto ship for ship. They went in with everything they had and fought a straight battle. And they all lost, Admiral Morrison replied. What's your point? My point is that we're not going to fight them the way they expect. Commander Alex Turner appeared on the main screen, transmitting from his flagship. Admiral, the 7th Fleet is in position. All ships are armed and ready. But I have to ask, sir, are we really going to attack an enemy that outnumbers us more than 10 to 1? Alex, let me ask you something, Morrison said. How do you kill a giant? Sir? In the old stories, when a small man had to fight a giant, how did he win? Commander! Turner thought for a moment. He didn't try to match the giant's strength. He used speed and intelligence. Exactly. We're not going to fight the Vexto like they're expecting. We're going to fight them like humans. Dr. Kate Walsh entered the bridge, carrying a tablet full of data. Her red hair was messy from working in the laboratory for 18 hours straight, but her eyes were bright with excitement. Admiral, she said, I've finished analyzing the enemy battle reports. The Vexto adaptation process is incredibly advanced, but it has limitations. They need time to study new weapons, understand how they work, and then develop defenses against them. How much time? Morrison asked. Based on the battle data, approximately 97 seconds. That's how long it takes their collective consciousness to analyze a new threat, process the information, and distribute countermeasures to the entire fleet. The bridge fell silent. 97 seconds to defeat an enemy that had destroyed the greatest fleets in the galaxy. It sounded impossible. Kate, Captain Carter said slowly, are you saying we have less than 2 minutes to win this entire battle? I'm saying we have 97 seconds to hit them with everything we've got before they figure out how to stop us. Lieutenant Sam Kelly, the ship's tactical officer, looked up from his console. Doctor, with respect, that's not enough time. Even if we fired every weapon we have at maximum rate, we couldn't destroy 4,000 ships in 97 seconds. Doctor. Walsh smiled. Sam, you're thinking like a conventional military officer. We're not going to destroy 4,000 ships. We're going to destroy their ability to think. She activated her tablet and showed them a holographic display of the Vextol fleet. The ships were connected by thin lines of light that pulsed with data. The Vextol share a collective consciousness, she explained. Every ship is connected to every other ship. When one learns something, they all learn it instantly. But that connection is also their weakness. If we can disrupt their neural network, we can turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. Commander Ben Hayes, Morrison's intelligence officer, stepped forward. Doctor, explain that in simple terms. Think of the Vextol fleet as a giant brain made up of thousands of parts. Each ship is like a brain cell. If we can damage enough of those cells at the same time, the whole brain will stop working. Admiral Morrison studied the display. What kind of weapons do we need for that? That's where it gets interesting, Dr. Walsh said. I've developed 3 types of weapons that the Vextol have never seen before. Quantum disruptors that can exist in multiple dimensions at once. Temporal bombs that can make time move differently around the target. And neural cascade generators that can send feedback loops through their collective consciousness. Will they work? Morrison asked. Honestly, I don't know. These weapons are based on theories that most scientists say are impossible. But if they do work, they'll give us the advantage we need. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos, the fleet's top fighter pilot, had been listening to the conversation from her position near the back of the bridge. She was a small woman with dark hair and eyes that never seemed to blink. She had shot down more enemy fighters than any pilot in the fleet. Admiral, she said, even if these super weapons work, we still need to get close enough to use them. The Vextol will start shooting at us the moment we come out of the nebula. That's where the fighter squadrons come in, Morrison replied. Maria, I need your people to clear a path for the main fleet. Think you can handle that? Maria grinned. Sir, my pilots have been training for this their whole lives. We'll get you close enough. Captain Amy Robinson's voice crackled through the communication system. She was still in enemy territory, flying her stealth ship deep inside the Vextol formation. Admiral, this is Ghost. I'm transmitting real-time data about the enemy fleet. They're not just sitting there waiting for us. They're moving into attack formation. I count 47 command ships, each one coordinating about 100 smaller vessels. Amy, can you identify their command structure? Morrison asked. Working on it now, sir. It looks like they have 3 main command nodes. If we could take out those nodes, it might disrupt their coordination. Dr. Walsh's eyes lit up. Admiral, that's perfect. If we can hit their command nodes with the neural cascade generators, we can send feedback loops through their entire network. It will be like giving their collective consciousness a massive headache. Morrison walked to the center of the bridge and activated the fleet-wide communication system. Every ship in the human armada could hear his voice. All ships, this is Admiral. Morrison, in 30 minutes, we're going to do something that has never been done before. We're going to attack an enemy that outnumbers us 10 to 1. We're going to use weapons that most people think are impossible. And we're going to do it. All in less than 2 minutes. He paused, looking around the bridge at his officers. Each one of them was scared, but each one of them was ready to follow him into hell. I want everyone to understand something, he continued. This is not about proving how tough we are. This is not about glory or honor. This is about survival. The Vexto have destroyed 17 star systems. They've killed billions of innocent people. They see all life as nothing more than food to be consumed. The communication channel was completely silent. On 300 ships, human crews listened to their admiral's words. But they made one mistake, Morrison said, his voice growing stronger. They threatened our neighbors. They threatened species that we've sworn to protect, and humans don't tolerate bullies. Captain Carter smiled. She had heard Morrison give speeches before, but never like this. Here's what we're going to do, Morrison continued. We're going to hit them with everything we've got. We're going to use weapons they've never seen before. We're going to move faster than they can think. And we're going to show them what happens when you mess with the people we care about. He looked at Dr. Walsh, who nodded and activated her experimental weapons. In 29 minutes, we're going to prove that humans don't just survive. We protect. We don't just fight. We win. And when this battle is over, the galaxy will know that Earth stands with its allies. The communication channel erupted with cheers from 300 ships. Human crews whooped and shouted, their fear turning into excitement. All ships, prepare for Operation Thunderstrike, Morrison announced. Remember, we have 97 seconds to end this war. Let's make them count. As the human fleet prepared to leave the nebula, Ambassador Zefkar watched from his observation ship. His crystal form was flickering with what humans had learned to recognize as amazement. They're actually going to do it, he whispered to his aide. 300 ships against 4,000, and they think they can win. Should we retreat to a safe distance? His aide asked. Zefkar was quiet for a long moment. No, I want to. See this? I want to see what happens when humans decide to fight. On the bridge of the Valkyrie, Admiral Morrison looked at his watch. 28 minutes until the attack began. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency, preparing for the battle of their lives. Sir, Captain Carter said quietly, are you sure about this? If we're wrong about the 97 seconds, if the weapons don't work, if anything goes wrong. Lisa, Morrison replied, 50 years ago, humans were trapped on one planet, fighting wars with primitive weapons. Today, we're about to attack. The message from Admiral Morrison reached Earth in less than 6 hours. Within 12 hours, every human military base, research station, and shipyard in the solar system was buzzing with activity. The order was simple but massive. Prepare for the biggest military operation in human history. On Luna Station, the moon's largest military facility, Commander Alex Turner stood in the main hangar watching thousands of people work. Alex was a short man with thick black hair and muscles that came from years of military training. He had been in charge of the 7th Fleet for 3 years, and his ships had never lost a battle. Now he was getting ready for the fight of his life. Status report, Alex called out to his officers. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim, his operations. Officer checked her tablet. Sir, all ships are reporting ready. The Harbinger finished loading ammunition 20 minutes ago. The Devastator just completed its engine upgrades. The Nemesis is armed with the new quantum torpedoes. Alex nodded. The 7th Fleet was humanity's heavy attack force. Their ships were built for one purpose, to hit the enemy so hard they never got back up. The Harbinger was a massive battleship with enough firepower to level a small moon. The Devastator was a missile cruiser that could fire 1,000 rockets in 30 seconds. The Nemesis was the newest ship, built with technology that was still classified. What about the Marines? Alex asked. Colonel Pierce says his people are ready to go. They've been drilling with the new armor for weeks. Alex smiled. Colonel Danny Pierce was the best Marine commander in the fleet. His soldiers were tough, smart, and absolutely fearless. More importantly, they were the first humans to use the new neural combat interfaces. The technology let them think and move faster than any normal human could. Other alien species thought it was dangerous to mess with the human brain like that. Alex thought it was exactly what they needed. 3 decks below, in the research section of Luna Station, Dr. Kate Walsh worked in her laboratory. Kate was a small woman with red hair and eyes that seemed to see things other people miss. She was the head of the Terran Science Division, and she was working on humanity's most secret project. Computer, run simulation number 400. N7, she said. The holographic display in front of her showed a Vexto ship. The computer fired different weapons at it, testing each one. Plasma cannons bounced off its hull. Missile explosions barely scratched the surface. Even nuclear weapons only made small dents. Useless, Kate muttered. They adapt to everything. Conventional? She walked to another computer and pulled up her special project. For 2 years, she had been working on weapons that broke the normal rules of physics. Quantum disruptors that could exist in multiple dimensions at once. Temporal bombs that could make time move differently. Neural cascade generators that could attack the enemy's mind instead of their ships. If they can adapt to normal weapons. She said to herself, let's see them adapt to weapons that shouldn't exist. Her assistant, Dr. Mark Chun, looked up from his own work. Kate, are you sure these things will work? The quantum disruptors are completely untested. Mark, we're about to fight an enemy that destroyed the greatest fleets in the galaxy. This is not the time to play it safe. Meanwhile, on the other side of the solar system, Captain Amy Robinson was getting ready for her own mission. Amy was 28 years old with blonde hair and blue eyes, but her young appearance was deceiving. She was the best stealth pilot in the human fleet, and she had been chosen for the most dangerous job of all. Her ship, the used Ghost, was parked in the asteroid belt. It was small, black, and almost invisible to enemy sensors. Amy had spent the last 2 days checking every system, every weapon, every piece of equipment. In a few hours, she would fly alone into enemy territory to gather intelligence. Amy, you sure about this? Asked her engineer, Petty Officer Tony Martinez. You're going to be flying right into the middle of their fleet. Tony, somebody has to get us the information we need. Better me than someone else. Amy had already studied the mission files. She would fly to the Proxima Centauri system, get as close to the Vexto fleet as possible, and send back data about their numbers, positions, and weaknesses. It was the kind of mission that had a very low chance of survival. Besides, Amy added with a grin, I've always wanted to see what these monsters look like up close. Back on Earth, in the underground bunkers of the Global Defense Command, the biggest military leaders in human space were having an emergency meeting. General Patricia Hayes, the head of all human military forces, stood at the front of the room. She was a tall woman with gray hair and a face that never showed emotion. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, we have been asked to do something that many people would call impossible. We are going to attack an enemy that has destroyed every force sent against it. We are going to fight ships that can adapt to any weapon. We are going to face odds of more than 10 to 1. The room was silent. Around the table sat the commanders of every human fleet, the heads of every research division, and the leaders of every special forces unit. I want to be clear about something, General Hayes continued. This is not about glory. This is not about proving how tough we are. This is about survival. If the Vexto win, they will eventually come for us. They will consume every world, every ship, every person in human space. We can fight them now, with all eyes, or we can fight them later, alone. Admiral Morrison appeared on the main screen, transmitting from his flagship. General, I've been studying the enemy battle reports. These creatures are not just strong. They're smart. They learn from every fight, and they never make the same mistake twice. But I think that might be their weakness. Explain, General Hayes said. They adapt to what they see. But what if we hit them with everything at once? What if we use weapons they've never seen before? What if we move so fast they don't have time to adapt? Dr. Walsh's voice came through the speakers. Admiral, I've been working on that exact problem. I have weapons that work on principles the Vexto have never encountered. Quantum mechanics, temporal manipulation, neural disruption. But there's a catch. What kind of catch? General Hayes asked. These weapons are one-shot deals. Once we use them, the enemy will start to understand how they work. We'll have maybe 60 seconds of surprise before they begin adapting. The room erupted in discussion. 60 seconds to defeat an enemy that had destroyed 17 star systems. It seemed impossible. Admiral Morrison's voice cut through the noise. Then we make those 60 seconds count. Over the next 3 days, the human war machine came to life like never before. Every shipyard worked around the clock. Every factory produced weapons and ammunition. Every training facility pushed soldiers to their limits. On Mars, the Red Planet shipyards launched 12 new destroyers ahead of schedule. The ships were not completely tested, but they were armed with the most advanced weapons humanity had ever built. In the asteroid belt, mining ships were converted into missile platforms. They might not look like much, but each one carried enough firepower to level a city. On Europa, the ice moon of Jupiter, submarine crews trained in underwater combat. If the battle went badly, they might have to fight the Vexto in the oceans. Of alien worlds, Colonel Pierce worked with his Marines on Luna Station. The soldiers wore new armor that was black as space and covered with sensors. Their helmets had neural interfaces that connected directly to their brains. When they move like machines. When they fought like demons. Remember, Pierce told his troops, we're not just fighting for humanity. We're fighting for every species in the galaxy. The Vexto see all life as food. We're going to show them what happens when they try to eat us. Dr. Walsh made her final preparations. Her laboratory was filled with devices that hummed with dangerous energy. Quantum disruptors that could tear holes in reality. Temporal bombs that could make enemy ships age 1,000 years in seconds. Neural cascade generators that could drive the enemy insane. These weapons are beyond anything we've ever built, she told her team. They're dangerous, unpredictable, and they might not work at all. But if they do work, they'll give us the edge we need. Captain Robinson climbed into the cockpit of the Ghost. Her ship was loaded with the most advanced sensors humanity had ever built. She would fly ahead of the main fleet, alone and unprotected, to gather the intelligence they needed. Amy, Admiral Morrison said over the radio, I need you to be our eyes and ears. Find out everything you can about the enemy. Their numbers, their positions, their weaknesses. But most importantly, stay alive. We're going to need your skills. In the main battle? Don't worry, sir, Amy replied. I'll get you the information you need. As the human fleet prepared to leave the solar system, people on Earth looked up at the stars. They knew their sons and daughters were about to fight the most dangerous enemy the galaxy had ever seen. They knew the odds were terrible. But they also knew that humans had never backed down from a fight. No matter how impossible it seemed in bars and restaurants, people toasted the fleet. In churches and temples, they prayed for victory. In homes and schools, they taught their children about courage and sacrifice. The human war machine was awake, and it was hungry for battle. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of the UE's Valkyrie, the biggest and strongest ship in the human fleet. The room was dark except for the blue glow from the holographic display that showed star maps and battle reports. Jake was a tall man with gray hair and hard eyes that had seen too many wars. He wore the dark blue uniform of the United Earth-Space Navy, and 3 gold stars on his collar showed he was in charge of the entire Third Fleet. The alien standing before him was nothing like any human. Zefkar was 8 feet tall and looked like he was made of living crystal. His body was clear like glass, but light moved through him in strange patterns. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. Right now, those chimes were shaking with fear. Admiral Morrison, Zefkar said, his crystal hands trembling. The Vextol swarm has destroyed 17 star systems in just 1 month. They move like a plague across the galaxy, eating everything in their path. Our greatest fleets are gone. The Altarian Navy, with their famous golden ships, lasted only 3 days. The Corvan Defense Force, who have never lost a battle in 500 years, were wiped out in 6 hours. The Zolani Armada, the pride of the Outer Rim, fought for 2 weeks before they were completely destroyed. Jake listened without moving. Behind him, Captain Lisa Carter stood at attention. She was a small woman with short brown hair and sharp green eyes. She had been Jake's second in command for 8 years, and she knew him well enough to see the anger building behind his calm face. Next to her, Chief Engineer Ryan Brooks checked his tablet. Ryan was young for his rank, only 32, but he was the smartest person Jake had ever met when it came to making ships work better and hit harder. "Show me what we're dealing with," Jake said in a voice that was quiet but carried the weight of command. The holographic display changed. Now it showed the enemy fleet, and everyone in the room took a step back. The Vexto ships were huge, each one 3 times bigger than the largest human battleship. But size was not the worst part. The ships looked alive. They had no straight lines or smooth surfaces like human ships. Instead, they curved and twisted like giant sea creatures. Their hulls were dark gray with green lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. Long tentacles hung from their sides, and their front ends had what looked like massive mouths full of metal teeth. "Dear God," Lisa whispered. "They number in the thousands," Zefkar continued, his voice getting high with panic. "We have never seen anything like them. They appeared from deep space 6 months ago, beyond the edge of our galaxy. At first, we thought they were just another aggressive species that we could negotiate with or fight off. We were wrong. They do not want territory. They do not want resources. They want everything, every planet, every ship, every living being. They consume it all." Ryan looked up from his tablet. "Sir, I'm reading the battle reports now. The alien fleets threw everything they had at these things. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, even antimatter bombs. Nothing worked." "That's not the worst part," Zefkar said. "The Vexto ships learn. Every weapon we use against them, they adapt to it. After the first battle, our plasma weapons became useless. After the second, our missiles could not hit them. By the third battle, they were using our own weapons against us, but stronger and faster than we ever made them." Jake walked closer to the holographic display. He studied the enemy ships, looking at their formations, their movements, their design. His mind was already working on the problem. This was what made him different from other admirals. While they saw an impossible enemy, he saw a puzzle to solve. "How do they communicate?" he asked. "We believe they share a collective consciousness," Zefkar replied. "They think as one mind across thousands of ships. When one learns something, they all learn it instantly. And their weapons? Bioplasma cannons that can burn through any armor we have. Boarding tentacles that can tear open a ship's hull and fill it with warrior drones. But the worst weapon they have is fear. When our crews see them coming, half of them surrender before the first shot is fired." Lisa stepped forward. "With respect, Ambassador, why should we help you? Your species have treated humans like children for 50 years. You've called us primitive warmongers who barely stop fighting each other. Why come to us now?" Zefkar's crystal form flickered with embarrassment. "Because you are primitive warmongers. And right now, that might be exactly what we need." The room fell silent. Jake turned away from the display and looked at the alien ambassador. "Explain that." "We are civilized species," Zefkar said. "We have rules for war. We have treaties and agreements about what weapons can be used and how battles should be fought. We try to minimize casualties and damage. We fight with honor and dignity. The Vexto do not care about any of that. They fight like wild animals, but with the intelligence of a supercomputer. They use fear and horror as weapons. They turn our own morality against us." "And you think we'll fight dirty enough to beat them?" Ryan asked. "I think you'll fight in ways we cannot," Zefkar replied. Human history is full of impossible victories. You defeated enemies that outnumbered you 10 to 1. You survived wars that should have destroyed your species. You built weapons that terrified even yourselves. Most importantly, you never surrender. Even when facing complete destruction, humans find a way to fight back. Jake nodded slowly. He had heard this speech before from other aliens, but never delivered with such desperation. What exactly are you asking us to do? The Vextol main fleet is gathering in the Proxima Centauri system. Our intelligence suggests they are preparing for a final push toward the core worlds. If they take the galactic capital, it will be over. We are asking you to take your fleet and stop them. How many ships do they have? Lisa asked. Current estimates put their numbers at over 4,000 vessels. Ryan almost dropped his tablet. 4,000? Sir, our entire third fleet has only 300 ships. I know the odds are impossible, Zefkar said quickly, but we have nowhere else to turn. The Galactic Council has authorized me to offer you anything you want. Technology, resources, territory, even a permanent seat on the council. Name your price. Jake was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the holographic display again, studying the alien ships. 4,000 vessels, each one bigger and stronger than anything humanity had ever built. Ships that could learn and adapt to any weapon. Ships that had already destroyed the greatest fleets in the galaxy. Any sane military commander would laugh at the idea of attacking them. But Jake Morrison was not just any military commander. He was human. And humans had a long history of doing impossible things. Lisa, get me a direct line to Earth Command. Ryan, I want a full technical analysis of every piece of data we have on these Vextol ships. I want to know how they think, how they move, how they breathe. Sir, Lisa said carefully, are you seriously considering this? Jake turned to face his crew. 50 years ago, we were just another species trying to survive on one small planet. Now we have ships that can cross the galaxy and weapons that can crack moons. We didn't get here by backing down from impossible fights. He looked back at Zefkar. Ambassador, I can't promise we'll win. But I can promise you this, if humanity takes this fight, we'll give those monsters something they've never seen before. We'll show them what happens when you threaten our neighbors. Zefkar's crystal, formed brightened with hope. Then you'll help us? I'll take it to Earth Command, Jake said. But first, I need to know everything. Every battle, every weapon, every strategy that's been tried. If we're going to fight these things, we need to understand them completely. Of course, Zefkar said. I'll transmit all our data immediately. As the alien ambassador left the command center, Lisa moved closer to Jake. Sir, do you really think we can win this? Jake looked at the holographic display one more time. The Vextol ships hung in space like mechanical nightmares, waiting to consume everything in their path. But for the first time since the meeting began, he smiled. Lisa, we're about to find out what happens when an unstoppable force meets human stubbornness.